It's about 1 o'clock, so we'll go and get ourselves started here. So I would like to introduce you to DesignSafe. It's DesignSafe 101. It's kind of a light introduction to what DesignSafe is, what its capabilities are, what its applications, and how to get data in and out of DesignSafe. One thing before we get started, I'd like to point out that if you look at the DesignSafe homepage right now, we have an announcement that February 1st is the deadline for the NHERI REU applications for summer of 2019. The REU program is fantastic. I've been a mentor for some of these students here at the University of Texas in Austin and at Tack, and it's a great research opportunity. It is a great opportunity for some of the for these students to understand what DesignSafe is about, what a research facility can do, and what civil engineering is about. So, thank you very much for joining us, and let's go ahead and get ourselves started. So, before we get started about DesignSafe, let's talk about a little bit about what brought DesignSafe to its existence. All right, so the vision of DesignSafe was that we were going to create a research environment that is hosted on the cloud that can become an integral part of your research lifecycle. Every place from conception of an idea to publication of a product or a project based on that idea. So this is a set of cloud-based tools that support the analysis, the visualization, and integration of diverse data types. So the idea here was we weren't just going to focus on a single data structure. We want this to be open to whatever data structure is required for you to do your research work with. And we want to support the end-to-end research workflow. Everything from when your idea becomes conceptualized to when you publish your research paper, when somebody reads your research paper and then has a new idea, and that entire workflow we were trying to capture in DesignSafe. And of course, we want to be able to enhance, amplify, and link all the capabilities of all the different NHERI components as well. So a little bit about how DesignSafe is structured. So DesignSafe has a lot of working parts, and there's a lot of different people that get encapsulated to DesignSafe to get DesignSafe to work on. So the way DesignSafe is set up is we have the simulation research, there's the experimental research, and the rapid research. All those different facilities basically create a lot of data. That data is then funneled and stored on the DataDepot inside of DesignSafe. DesignSafe then has this thing called the Discovery Workspace, where we can take the data, we can do data analysis on it, we can do visualization on it, and we can then update data sets or create new data sets, which are then stored back to the DataDepot, that then the experimental researchers, the rapid researchers, the simulation researchers can then access and produce new data and continue this life cycle. And we can also curate and publish this data as well. And then that creates a DOI, and that DOI can then link back to DesignSafe to the exact data set. So now, not only are you creating a reference to your published work, but you can also create a reference to the data that is cited. So in order to build this community, that has so many of the natural hazards associated researchers into it, we decided we need a communication tool. So for that communication tool, we use Slack. Slack's a little bit more than just a communication tool. For example, you can share documents with other researchers. You can create topics. You can set up reminders. You can have notifications on any keywords. So if you're a hurricane researcher and a hurricane's about to hit, you can create a keyword search. So whenever that hurricane is mentioned, you'll get a notification on Slack, and then you can see what the discussion is. You can create private channels, you can create public channels, you can do threaded conversations that allow you to link subtopics together as well. So you should be able to, that is the URL to our DesignSafe Slack channel. You should have an invitation waiting for you. If not, feel free to email or fill out a ticket on DesignSafe, and we'll make sure we get an invitation sent to you. All right. Also, where to get help on DesignSafe? There is a help menu, and in there we have the frequently asked questions. We have the user guide. We have a quick getting started, some getting started videos, and some getting started guides as well. And that's where you also go to submit a ticket. All right, so that gives you a little bit of background on what DesignSafe is, what we want DesignSafe to be, and where DesignSafe came from. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a quick walkthrough through the slides and what the capabilities are, and then we'll launch the site and talk a little bit about what each portion is in a live demo. Right, so to get started, there's a login page and a registration page. If you haven't registered yet, click on the register button, fill out the form information, and go ahead and register it. Then an account will be created. When you first log into your account, you land on what we call our landing page. So the landing page tells you about what recent jobs you started, how many applications are available, how many data has been stored. You can manage your account there. You can access the data, your DataDepot, access your workspace, look at what training is available. You can also get status updates on any jobs that you've submitted and see where those jobs are currently sitting at. So coming into DesignSafe, one thing I've mentioned over and over is the DataDepot. All right, your data is valuable to you, and this is what the DataDepot was created for. The DataDepot essentially is a multi-purpose data repository. This is where you will hold your experimental data, your simulation data, any field data that you capture. And the beauty of the DataDepot is it's a flexible data model. And we've come to understand that every single researcher has their own structure for their data sets. So what the DataDepot was designed for was to be able to handle these structures. It's also able to handle large data sets as well. So if you have a very large data set, there are numerous ways of getting that large data set into DesignSafe, and we'll talk about what those different abilities are. Also, the data is for your entire life cycle, meaning this is where you can discover data sets from other people. You can then take those data sets, you can query them, you can use them in your models, and then you could take that data that you've created and publish a new data set, and then share that data set with the rest of the community. You can then download it for your own needs or upload new data as you see fit. But yeah, the DataDepot is essentially where your data sits. So if you look at the way the DataDepot is structured, it looks very similar to a file system, all right? Just like if you open up a Windows Explorer, or if you open up File Explorer on the Mac, this is kind of what it looks like. You have all your files, you have all your folders, you can click on multiple files, you can share those with other people. Everything resides under My Data, all right? So your My Data is your personal repository, the place for all of your data to sit. Essentially, everything you require for you to do your research work, you'd be putting inside the My Data. There's also a section in DesignSafe called My Projects, all right? So My Projects is a list of projects, it's a collection of files, it's a collection of folders that you've been given access to. And these projects that you've been given access to, or you create a project and you add other people to have access to it. These projects can grow, they can be curated, they can be referenced. Once they become published, this is something to think about. Once you publish a project, that project essentially becomes slated in stone, all right? So it can no longer be updated, no longer be changed because it's a published project now. If you wish to create a new project based on an old project, you essentially create a link to it, update everything, and then continue on with version 2. And then of course, when version 2 becomes to a published state, then you can create a version 3 and keep moving. The idea is once a project becomes published, it's essentially it's a fixed point in time, and now that point cannot be changed. You can then move from it and keep making your modifications on a future project based on that. We also have a number of cloud providers that are connected to DesignSafe. So one thing that we're trying to do is make sure that you have multiple avenues of getting your data into DesignSafe. One of those avenues is using cloud providers like Box.com or Dropbox or Google Drive. So now you can connect your DesignSafe data. You can open up like Google Drive through DesignSafe, and move your folders and move your files from Google Drive to your DesignSafe My Data. And then there's also published data. So published data is a repository that all of your data sits in. It's data that has been published and is now available to the public at large. That means that you do not need to have a DesignSafe account to access published data, right? So published data allows users to search the database on any criteria that they're looking for without having to have a DesignSafe account. So essentially, once you publish it, it becomes part of the public accessible data sets, and they can come into DesignSafe and look at those published data. There's also, if the slide's not here, but there's also a little bit about publishing data as well. Let's talk about that really quick. So if you wish to publish a data set, this is one of the ones that's published there. You look at, click publish, it'll give you what the project ID is. It'll tell you who the PI is, the DOI, meaning the citation information. If you click on the citation button, you'll actually get a link to a link back to the data set here. Now this is a published project, so that means all of the data has been published. All the forms, the PDF files, any text, any scripts that belong to this project have also been published. Now, also meaning that there is a roadmap to helping you publish data, all right? So we all understand, we've all written research papers before, so we all understand how to publish a research paper, what goes into that, how to write one out, how to set one up. Data is a little different. So data actually has to be curated. It has to get to a point where anybody can look at your data set and understand what the story the data is trying to tell, all right? So there's a couple things involved. Researchers have to decide how to represent their data. There's some consideration needed to how is it going to be understood by an outside user. We have to understand what this data model is going to look like, all right? So what we have a data curator on site, Dr. Maria Estevan, all right? Maria is fantastic to work with, and she will help you determine what model might best fit your data set. And then she can help you get this data set curated and then get your data set published, all right? There's a couple different models available. There's experimental simulation, there's other hybrid simulations, field reconnaissance, social sciences, and they all have different aspects and different nuances that are involved in getting this data to be understood to a wider audience. So Maria has been nice enough to hold office hours online through Zoom meetings, just like what we're doing here. That's the URL to what her office hours is, and it's available on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. on Central Time Zone. You can also fill out a help ticket and get some more information on that as well. All right, so the last tab on the DesignSafe DataDepot is community data. So community data is public data that's been uncurated. It's essentially in its raw format, all right? And there's no real model of it. It's essentially what it is I'm a DesignSafe user. I've written a really cool Jupyter Notebook. I put together some really cool scripts. I have a lot of cool data sets available that I need some help with, or I might be able to have these data sets available that might be good training material for somebody else. So it's kind of an informal public data set that can range a variety of issues, everything from training, everything to, hey, I need another set of eyes on this, or something that might be helpful to the community at large. That's what we've created the community data for. It is a public, informal, uncurated data repository. If you have something that you think the rest of the DesignSafe community might find useful, feel free to contact us at DesignSafe and here at Tack by filling out a ticket, and we'll be happy to try and get your data set into the community data folder. Okay, so the big question is now, how do you get your data into DesignSafe? So there's a bunch of different avenues for you to take, all right? And these avenues depend upon a lot on how big your data set is, how many folders you have, how many files you have, and where the data is currently residing at, all right? So the DataDepot has this built-in file uploading system, which works fantastic if you have a small number of files. So if you have, say, 25 files and about 100 megabytes of data, you can use the built-in folder upload and file upload system that DesignSafe has using the DataDepot. Alternatively, you can also use Box.com, Dropbox, or Google Drive. So if you have a bunch of data sitting on your local drive, on your local computer, and you don't want to go directly through DesignSafe, you can also go upload this data set to Box, Dropbox, or Google Drive, and then go into DesignSafe and copy those over. So we do not have a sync capability on DesignSafe to sync with these cloud providers directly. So you actually have to do a manual process of copying those into your cloud provider and then moving those over into DesignSafe. Now, those are fantastic if you have a small number of files, 25 or less, or 100 megabytes of data, not too much information. But if you have large data sets, if you have over 25 files and they're over 100 megabytes each, what you can do is there's a application called Globus, all right? Globus takes a little bit to actually get it up and going, all right? So there is a little bit of a manual process where you have to authorize Globus to be able to access your DesignSafe account. You have to fill up an account request on there and get your account set up and log in and all this other stuff. There is a little bit of a process, and we'll be more than happy to help you guys through it. If you go to globus.org, some of it's actually listed over there. We also have the Globus Data Transfer Guide linked here on this slide. You can probably Google that and get to it all as well. We have also done a couple webinars on Globus, particular how to get data from your machine to DesignSafe using Globus. If you go to our YouTube channel, you should be able to find those archives there. But really quickly, it's a matter of figuring out who you are and then sharing that token information with us here at DesignSafe, and we'll get it up and going for you. If you're a little bit more of an advanced user, there's also a command line interface available using rsync or SCP, and you'll be able to upload your files through that, and that works really, really well as well. Okay, so that's all your data set. Now, once you get your data to DesignSafe, what you really have to want to do is be able to use applications and write code against that data and do your actual analysis work. This is where the Discovery Workspace, or just the Workspace, comes into play at, all right? So the Workspace allows users to perform simulations and do data analysis using many open source simulation codes like OpenSeas, OpenFOAM, or AdCirc. We also have some commercial tools available like MATLAB. If you have your own Python scripts or R scripts that you've written to be able to want to query your data, we have Jupyter Notebooks available as well. And then we also have some other, we have areas available to do custom work, custom coding. You can also, there's a number of visualization tools and also some QGIS applications available as well. So if you click on the Workspace, you'll see that there is different tabs available for different software. We have a couple different versions of AdCirc, a couple different versions of OpenSeas. Actually, I think this window's changed a little bit now. And if you click on one, it'll tell you what that version does and what that version excels at and which version you should use for your data set. So if you go to the Discovery Workspace, we have the application tab bar. From there, you'll see all the different applications that are available to you as a DesignSafe user. Launching this is actually rather simple. Find the application you wish, click on it. What that opens up is a little Windows form. So that form allows you to go ahead and do your entry on what directory is your data going to be coming from. Do you have a Tickle script available? Where is that Tickle script sitting at? How long is this job going to run? What directory would you like the output to go to? And once you're all set, you hit execute, and it submits your job. Now, there's a little bit of background knowledge that you should probably have about how DesignSafe works. So we are the Texas Advanced Computing Center. We run some of the fastest supercomputers in the world, with some of the highest data throughput available today. Our #1 machine is Stampede 2. All right, Stampede 2 has about 6,000 nodes attached to it and runs at about 18 petaflops. So it's a very fast machine that's available to you as DesignSafe users. Every application that you run using DesignSafe runs on Stampede 2 in the background. So when you're filling this information in and you hit submit, what's really happening is it's creating a job and it is submitting that job on our supercomputer. So then our supercomputer picks it up off the queue and executes it for you. You get some output available. It then takes that output and it puts it into one of the DesignSafe folders. You will get a notification when your job is completed running. You can open up that folder and see your output and then continue the cycle. Some jobs there's some applications available also, like I mentioned, that help you do your data processing, your data analysis work. One of those is the Jupyter Notebook. So we essentially click on Jupyter, hit launch, comes up to a new screen. Go ahead and it should autofill your DesignSafe information to launch, and it'll go ahead and launch for you. Also, a little bit of background information on Jupyter Notebooks. The Jupyter Notebooks run on a virtual machine that gets created just for you. And it is attached to all the DesignSafe data. We will probably run a little sample Jupyter Notebook just so you guys can see what it looks like. So your output, it'll always ask you where your output's going to go to. There's a default directory called archive inside your My Data. That is essentially where your output directory will go to. So just click on the archive and you'll navigate to the file name you've created and be able to look and open up the file and analyze your data. Okay, the other thing that DesignSafe is in the process of doing right now is we are building up our GIS capable software suite. So right now there is a program called HouseMapper available. HouseMapper is kind of like the poor man's Google Earth. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with really some simple steps. And so HouseMapper is available to you to use. We also have a point cloud viewer called Potri. There's a little bit of Potri comes in a couple steps. There's a Potri converter, which takes your point cloud data and converts it into a data set that Potri can then read. And then you have the Potri viewer that's allowed to read that converted data set. And then we have a geospatial analysis software out there available for you as well called QGIS. If you ever need any help using any of these software packages, feel free to let us know. You can fill out a ticket, you can find us on Slack, and we'll be happy to walk you through how to use some of these applications. So HouseMapper is kind of a web-based application for creating and visualizing and analyzing geospatial data. Essentially, you can create maps, you can geolocate photos. So if you take pictures, geolocation is turned on. When you upload those to HouseMapper, it'll automatically put those photos at the longitude and latitude that is connected to the geospatial data on the photo. Then you could also create borders, you can create maps, you can zoom yourself all the way into particular places and draw where the hazards are located at, what was done. You have different color coding available to you. You can drop pins at different locations. And then, of course, you can share that information with other people. And then the data, and you share that through the DataDepot. Potri is really, really cool. So like I said, Potri is a open source WebGL-based point cloud viewer. So when you have a point cloud system taken by any of the LiDAR equipment that we have available through the DesignSafe Rapid facilities, you can then take that point cloud data that gets created, and then you can load that into DesignSafe and then view it using Potri. And it actually is a very, very powerful tool that works over the web. So it's a great tool to use. I've actually used it quite a bit. And then we have QGIS, all right? So we have on staff here is MyR. MyR is a great resource to have. And if there's any questions about using QGIS, MyR would be the guy to contact. So we have this QGIS is a quantum geographical information system, all right? It's open source software that allows you to create, visualize, and analyze geospatial data, all right? What's really neat is you can view your data, you can explore it, You can manage and export it to different tools. We use it here on DesignSafe. It's mostly used for flooding, earthquake, landslide, and liquefaction hazard mapping. What's really kind of neat is you can then take an area, you can draw the map around it, you can do elevation studies on it. One thing that we had used the HouseMapper for when Hurricane Harvey hit the coast of Texas, we were able to see what the elevation was for certain homes and understand if the water level was higher than the electrical outlets, we knew those particular houses would be a hazard to walk into. The QGIS would tell us where those water levels were, so first responders could take a little bit more caution in exploring those areas. And then finally, we have the Reconnaissance portal. All right, so the Recon portal is created to access reconnaissance data. So when we have people on the field going out to a place like Hurricane Harvey, they're doing a lot of reconnaissance work. They're collecting a lot of data sets. Those data sets are now being hosted on DesignSafe, and they're accessible through the Recon portal. So the Recon portal is very simple. If you look at it, it's very similar to the way that the HouseMapper is set up. In fact, you can take your HouseMapper data. Once you're ready to publish that, you can publish that into the Recon portal. But essentially, you have a little place for searching. You search what it is you're looking for, what event may have happened, or city, or something like that. And all the data that is that defines what that event was, for example, weather data or clouds or what happened when and how, you can take all that information and store it under a pin for that event. And then, of course, you can share that off as well. And this is also kind of cool, is you can link any data. It's not necessarily data that's on DesignSafe. It could be data that's hosted on other sites. Here's a view of the Reconnaissance portal and how it was built up. Some of the identification, we archived different events and what they look like. For Hurricane Irma, for example, that happened in Florida, they had photos. They had a bunch of data sets that were involved in there and what those data sets look like. Okay, so before we continue, let's go ahead and do a little bit of a live demo on DesignSafe. What we can do is we'll search through the public data sets, we'll navigate to an experiment, we'll view what the metadata looks like. We can go to My Data, we can just kind of look at what the My Data looks like. We can try launching an application, we'll launch maybe Jupyter or something, and we'll see what some of these output files are viewed as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a new share for DesignSafe, and we'll get a live view. All right, so everybody should be seeing the DesignSafe page. I've logged in as myself. When you do first come into your account, you come into your landing page. So I'm going to come onto my landing page here. It's got a list of all my notifications, how many apps are available to us, how much data has been stored, and whatnot. Also gives me all the notifications I've had the last time I ran some of my some applications. We can now go back to our main DesignSafe page through the menu. So I can go to back to DesignSafe here, or I can go and look at my dashboard, excuse me, which is where we're at right now. My notifications list, so it gives me a list of all the notifications I've had so far, or I can go and log out of the system. So let's go to the DesignSafe main page. So here's the DesignSafe main page. Like I said, if you would like to apply for an RU for NHERI, the deadline's approaching is February 1st. So let's go ahead and go to the research workbench. So everything we use on the research workbench. We have the DataDepot, we have the Workspace. So let's go ahead and go to our DataDepot. So like I said, the DataDepot looks very similar to a file system. We have folders, we have files. And multiple different types of files. I have a bunch of Jupyter Notebooks, I have some text files, I have some raw data files, some CSV files, things that I'm using to do my, my training or things I'm using to do my research work with. So one of the things let's look at, let's go ahead and go to published data. And inside of our published data, let's go ahead and search for I was going to search for Ellen, who is our PI on this project, and let's see what interesting things she has in public data sets. So here's the earthquake landslide inventory for the Calicut earthquake. If you pull that up, here's a little bit about information on what the earthquake was, when it happened. Here's the DOI for when it's located at. We can click on the view team members. It tells us the PI, the co-PIs, and any other team members available on that project. Also, it tells us any associated projects. It's associated with the Gear Association. And now we can look at what the, there's a README file available. Any of these files that you click on, it will automatically, so PDF, for example, will automatically render so we can actually read it. So we get some understanding of what the project contents are. And let's go and look at, she's got some GeoJSON files located in here. GeoJSON files, as you know, just died. Oh, sorry guys, it looked like my Zoom session just crashed. It came back up. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. When did you lose me? When did you lose me?
Just as you were introducing.
Okay. All right.
Not even more.
Sorry about that, guys. Let me reshare my data set with you. All right, sorry about that. So one thing I want to show you really quick was what the citation looks like. So if I click on citation, you'll show this is the link to the DOI URL, and this is a link that I can actually copy and paste and put directly in my reference part of my article. I can also download the citation metadata if I wish to. But if you click on that link takes us directly to the project that is sitting on DesignSafe. So now not only can you do a reference to your article, like I said, you can also now refer back to the original data set. All right, so this is basically what a published project looks like and how we can access it using DesignSafe. We can also, of course, view the metadata. We can download any files that we want to view and move from there as well. All right, the other thing I want to show you was the community data, because that always gets a lot of questions asked about what community data is. So if we just look at the community data, you see that there's some places available for educational resources. So this is all the education. We run a number of summer camps, K-12 outreach camp. All that material is located here and in the community data. This is for other educators to be able to come and review what material we used and how was that done. One of the things we have in here is building a classroom wave tank. Also, how do you build your own shake table? So all that information is actually located here. This is a video file. If I were to click that, it would go and launch the video. So there's a lot of cool educational resources available for everyone at large. There's also some Jupyter Notebooks available as well. So if you have any questions or need a sample notebook to look at, just open up one of these sample Jupyter Notebooks. There's contour plotting using R, using DesignSafe as a tool. There's an intro to scientific visualization. We have some notebooks using Python. And then here's a really quick one on how to view a PDF file inside of a Jupyter Notebook, because that was something that people needed. I kind of started doing some research and did a sample notebook on how to do that. Okay, now, if there's any questions, like I said, feel free to get us on the chat window, and we'll be happy to answer those for you. So the other thing we have is My Projects. So My Projects are projects that you're currently on or that you've been shared with. So basically, here's one of the projects that I was kind of helping set up. And this is actually one of the projects that we had RU students that we're mentoring for and what they did. So here's what the project looks like. If you notice, this project has not been published yet. So there is no DOI, there's no data publication. We can then go through if we wanted to, we can manage the experiment. This is what it looks like, by the way, when we're actually curating our data. So when we curate our data set, we're saying, all right, what's the model configuration? We have the sensors, we have multiple events attached to it. We can add other events to it if we need to, depending on what our data set has, and so on and so forth. So essentially, when we curate our data set, we're essentially creating a tree on how the data is, how the data relates to itself, or relates to other parts of the data set. Once we have this all set up, we can then add other experiments, and we are one step closer to getting our data into a published view. Once again, I did say that once your data gets published, it goes into the public part of DesignSafe. That essentially becomes read-only. Any other changes to the project after that, it has to essentially be published again as a new published data set. Also, we do have, once again, I did say that we have Maria Esteva on staff. She is more than happy to help you curate your data and basically walk you through what the process is. Finally, we have, like I said, we have Box.com, we have Dropbox, and we have Google Drive. Let me wait for some of these to catch up here. Let's go back to the data. And go to Box.com here and see if it's loaded. So when you first come here and it says, hey, Box.com is not available, or it seems like it's no longer valid, or you haven't given permission yet, it's really, really simple to do to set this permission up. Well, you can give you a link directly. If you click on that link, it will tell you, it'll bring you to this integration window. All right, so it says it's enabled, so probably what I need to do is disconnect it and reconnect it. So I can disconnect it here. If I click on setup, it'll walk me through what the setup is. It takes me to box.com. I put in my email address, what my password is. I'm not sure if that's actually my password or not. And once everything's going, it will say, okay, let's go ahead and grant access. I'm going to say grant access. And now my box.com is available to my DataDepot. So I click on DataDepot, go to box.com. There's all my box.com information. All right. Last thing I wanted to look at was, so this is everything about the DataDepot in a nutshell, all right? You have your My Data, you have projects, items which have been shared with you. These are individual files that have been shared with you. They're not necessarily part of a project. How to access your cloud data providers, published data, community data, and then uploading. If you just click Add, if I want to add a new folder or add a new project, let me go to my data here. Add a new folder or a new project. And if I click new folder, it gives me a folder name. I can add multiple files. I can do folder uploads, file uploads. If you click on bulk data transfer, it's going to suggest, if you click on that, it's going to say, hey, there's a Globus data transfer guide. Use Globus to do something like this. And then we walk you through what the process is to get connected to Globus. All right, the other part of DesignSafe is the workspace. So if you click on the workspace, what we're going to be presented with is our application toolbar. All right, so our application, this is not going to do this. So if I click on simulation, here's the simulation software available. If I click on AdCirc, it'll tell you what the different versions of AdCirc are. Like I said, that between the slides and this version, it's been updated. But here's all the different versions of AdCirc. And then we tell you what the different versions do and what they're used for. So I can stick the Lone Star 5 or Stampede or the virtual version. And when I click on one of these, it then now comes up and says, hey, here's the documentation for it. This is that form I was telling you about that you essentially have to fill out what it is you're trying to do. So I'll give it an input directory. We do have some mock input directories available for you so you can get a feel for what it is you're doing. Also, if you notice, the left-hand side here is your DataDepot. So if there's a particular folder that you want to use as your input directory, you can just drag that over and drop that in, and it'll go ahead and fill out the necessary information for that particular folder. You can also browse to other areas. So if I want to use an input folder from my projects or an input folder from published, I can then do that. And it'll load those in there, and once again, I can drag that in and drop it. All right, let me go back to my data here. So I'm going to go ahead and run the sample version here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this mock account, copy that, put that in as my input folders. I'm going to now give it some runtime. I'm going to say, all right, this is, let's say it takes about 30 minutes to run. I'm going to give it a job name, so I'm going to call this day in answer. Answer demo. And today's date is 23rd. 01/23/2019. All right. Now here's if I wanted to give it an output directory besides where the default is. I'm just going to leave the default so it shows you where it's going to go. And I'm going to go ahead and click run. So now remember I said everything is essentially a job that's being queued on our supercomputer or a virtual machine. In this case, I'm running it on a virtual machine. I've submitted the job. It says, hey, your job, day, answer, demo, and today's date has been submitted. It monitors the status on the right. So now we see that the job is now pending. Click more information on here. We'll say, all right, this is the name of the job. This is the app that was running. Status, when it was submitted, hasn't been finished yet. Output's being pended. I can delete my job or I can cancel my job here if I realize, oh, I don't need this anymore. We're going to go and let this run for a little bit because it might take a little while to fire up and go. So like I said, this is being queued up. It's waiting for the queue to open, and then we'll run. All right, in the meantime, let's go look at some of the other things available to us. We have data processing. Oh, job's been finished. Oh, no, actually still pending. Other job's been finished. All right, so we have some visualization software available as well. This is also where the QGIS software is located at. That's the HouseMapper, the Poetry Converter, the Poetry Viewer, and the QGIS. There's also Visit and ParaView. These are two visualization software, so if you have some data that you'd like to visualize, you can use ParaView or Visit to view that. We actually had a training session using ParaView about a year ago. That should still be available on our YouTube channel, so you should be able to watch that there. Data processing, we have Jupyter and MATLAB. So I'm going to go and click on Jupyter and go ahead and click on Launch. Now, something I should tell you, your Jupyter instance will die after being idle for 3 days, all right? A lot of resources get used when you use the Jupyter Hub. So if it sits idle for too long, those resources need to be freed up, and so then you'll go ahead and end your job. Your files will still exist. Your files are still saved. Your files, that state is still created. Unfortunately, any notebooks that you may have just had open would then be closed. So I'm going to go and start my server here. Could actually also track that job in my status as well. So let's go do that. Let's go to my notifications. Let's see what's going on there. Oh, looks like it's ready to view. So I can view the raw message, and so now I can also go here. Here's the raw information. Remember, we told this where we wanted to go to. We wanted to go to a local directory. So let's go look at that directory and see what the data looks like. And then we'll go back to our Jupyter Notebook. All right. So under my data, there is a folder called Archive. Remember, that's where all your data ends up going to, under Jobs. And it should be dated by today's date. So I should have one here, January 29th. Click that. And this is where my output has been directed to. And this is what oh, there's nothing in there yet. It's probably still being built. Oh, this is from December 5th. I think my other job is still running. All right, let's go back to our Jupyter Notebook. So some things I wanted to show you in the way the Jupyter Notebook sits. So this is a landing page on Jupyter. Any notebooks that you want to create actually have to be done in your My Data directory. All right, so let's go ahead and select My Data. And actually, I'm going to go to my other My Data. Actually, it really doesn't matter too much. I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of these sample notebooks I have. Let's look at, this is actually a pretty good one, regression testing. So this is actually some regression testing algorithms that we were playing with to see if we can do these on DesignSafe and what it looks like. So Jupyter Notebooks, as you guys are probably familiar with, it's a combination of code, it's a combination of documentation, it's a combination of what we call markup language that allows documentation to be easier, better understood. And then you can run programs and you can do plots on the line. So this is some regression testing that we're looking at on some different data sets that we're kind of playing with. And we have a little bit about what the data is, what the algorithm is to use. And we can also then, of course, connect to other notebooks as well. So you can continue from one notebook to the other. That's just a combination of some different code that we're looking at and some different analysis and plots that we're doing on the data set. Everything I should tell you, you want to use your My Data or another folder to save it in, because that home folder, this gets reset. So anything you put here will get essentially deleted and erased. So always go to your My Data and do your information there. You'll also notice we have access to My Projects from here as well. You know your project ID number, you can click your project in, and you can be able to look at any of the data sets you have loaded. Also refer to these data sets when you're actually building your notebook or doing your analysis. Also, your community data is here available to you as well. The community data, all the notebooks that we have, that I mentioned that we have some sample notebooks available for you to look at and you to use. Those are located here. We have community data sets that you can do analysis work on as well. And then, of course, also the published data set is also available here. So if you know the project ID, remember when we first opened a published data set, that project ID came up. The project ID can then be located here in Jupyter, and the data set that you want to analyze or view is available to you to look at. And this is actually one of the REU papers that was put together and the presentation that was put together as a published project under NHERI. So let's see if I can try to fill in. See, also looking at notifications here. And view all. All right. So finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about Tack, all right, and some of the resources that we have available to you. Let me share my new screen with you. All right, so a little bit about Tack. So all these resources are available to you as a DesignSafe user, and you may wish to use some of our resources directly. So a little bit about Tack. We have about 160 staff here at the J.J. Pickle Research Campus, which is the University of Texas Research Campus. We have used about 10,000 users on 2,300 active projects. These are actual users that use our systems directly. There's a lot of users very similar to you that use Tack resources using a portal like DesignSafe. Just a quick glance of some of our capacity. We have 1 billion compute hours, 5 billion files, 50 petabytes of data that's actually stored in our system. We have hundreds of public data sets, and we have a 10 megawatt, about 15,000 square feet data center. We do a lot of services from designing and building portals to helping write web APIs. We do consulting work. We help curate and analyze data sets. We help you optimize your code. And we do training and outreach as well. This is a small glance at the different systems we have. Some of the ones that I'd like to point out to you is Chameleon and Jetstream. These are some of the things that are hosting parts of DesignSafe. We also have our big machine, Stampede 2. We have a picture of Stampede 1 here. Maverick is a big system designed to do deep learning and machine learning as well. And then we have a machine called Wrangler that does a lot of data analysis and data management. So let me tell you a little bit about Stampede 2, that a lot of these jobs that you execute will be running on. So Stampede 2 is part of the, you're serving the strategic national resource. We serve thousands of researchers across the entire nation. It's 18 petaflops of peak performance. We have about 4,200 Intel Knife Landing nodes and about and another 1,700 or so Intel Xeon Skylake processors. We also have these large memory nodes that are available with 192 gigs of RAM. It's a very fast system, and it's about, like I said, about 7,000 nodes connected to each other, or 6,000 nodes or so. And so everybody has, there's a base allocation available, and that base allocation is automatically issued to each user. It's about 8,000 SCUs and about 50 gigabytes of data, just roughly equivalent to a single processor core for a year, is what you're looking at. You can request additional resources if needed. So here's the eligibility requirements to be a PI here, on who's eligible to request additional resources. So you can look through that if you like, and what you need to be associated with. And this is how compute time is allocated, and how compute time is charged, and how storage is allocated, and how storage is charged. And this is how you apply. So if you have any additional requirements you need, or any additional allocations you need to use, if you go to the DesignSafe portal, submit a help ticket, which is on that first screen under the help menu, and tell us a little bit what you need, and we'll walk you through what the process is. This is what some of the size and different allocation limits are. Everybody's given a basic allocation. If you need to use it, feel free to send out a help ticket and we'll get you started. These are what the startup allocations look like, what a research allocation looks like, and what an educational allocation looks like. And then approximately how storage and compute time is charged. This is a little bit about what the review criteria is. We're looking for scientific merit. We're looking for methodologies that's appropriate for the DesignSafe resource. Earlier past successes, of course, play a role in what new funding is available, and what other NHERI funded facilities are being used, and what the funded support for a particular project is. All right. And now I'd like to open it up. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left. I really appreciate you guys joining us today. I know we did cover a lot of material, but I hope this gave you a little bit better understanding of what DesignSafe is about, how DesignSafe works, and what the key parts of DesignSafe are and how they all integrate together. If you have any questions, feel free to, I'll leave the chat window open for another 5 minutes or so. Feel free to hit us up on the chat. If there's any questions you come across later, ask the general questions on Slack. There's a link directly to it. You can also email training@DesignSafe-CI.org or fill out a ticket. Once again, my name is Charlie. But you can email me, charlie@tack.utexas.edu. I am Tack's Director of Training and Professional Development, and I'm also the training lead here on DesignSafe. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you guys have a great afternoon.